Hi guys, Chris and Jacob back again this week. Welcome back to another episode. Is that what we're calling them, Jacob? Episodes?
Episodes, yeah, that's what I called it last time, yeah.
All things golf from us at Broadstone Pro Shop at Custom Golf Performance. We got another special guest this week in the shape of
Special.
Mark. Very special, yeah. Mark Thistleton from TaylorMade. How's it going, Mark?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Thank you for your time. Just to sort of kick things off, could you just tell us a little bit about kind of why you're with us, your role at TaylorMade, and yeah, we'll go from there.
So I'm a European Tour Rep basically for TaylorMade. So that just consists of basically working with all our European Tour staff players, some of the global staff players when they're over playing this side of the Atlantic, and yeah, just basically custom fitting them for all their equipment, servicing them for all their kind of needs. We're like the go-between between the brand and our sort of athletes, if you like.
Uh-huh.
So I've been doing that job now, well, officially on the tour since 2017, but I've been in TaylorMade for coming up 10 years now. So just in a few different roles.
Nice. So how's obviously that's your roles had a massive effect in this lockdown period that we're in at the moment. What's life been like for you since all this has kicked off? Pretty quiet, or are you keeping busy? Or
yeah, very quiet, to be honest. I mean, obviously it was quite easy for TaylorMade to justify a furlough for us guys because essentially, you know, we're tour reps and the tour's not being played. So yeah, we're going to be off for another few weeks, I think, until we've got some definite plans with the tour kind of restarting. I know they've got a plan in place for it right now. So we're looking like going back in about 3 or 4 weeks' time just to sort of build up, because I know there's going to be a lot of players desperate to get some new equipment. I don't think they've gone this long without being able to get their hands on some stuff. So, a few weeks and then we'll be back to it.
Especially with the kind of launch of the product as well, it's kind of I would imagine you would have just started getting a bit of traction with it, and and then kind of everything.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's obviously we kind of launch it on the tour, and then a few weeks later it goes to retail. The launch went really well. I mean, I think we got, you know, the first week we had down in South Africa with the new driver, and I didn't actually go to South Africa, just my colleague did. And he literally only took 10 heads, and I think 9 of them went in play on the first week. So that's always a good sign if guys are seeing kind of good numbers and good enough performance to justify putting it in place straight away like that.
Yeah. And
then that rolled on, you know, guys got kind of excited to see it once they, you know, all the tour players, they love the new equipment. There's not many of them that are like resistant to kind of seeing it or hitting it. Most of them are like, come on, show me. At the end of the day, they're all kind of golf pervs a little bit themselves, so they want to see the new technology. They can't wait to get it in their hands and hit it. And yeah, we had some great success early on, and then, you know, from what I see in the retail figures, that carried on into retail, and we've had a really strong start with retail. So obviously bit of a kick to the momentum this, but hopefully we come out strong and sort of where we left off.
Yeah, I mean, we had a solid start with it in the studio and stuff, and we're really kind of enjoying fitting it and kind of just getting used to it. Like, you know, every driver launch, every product launch, there's always kind of a little nuance here and there to what works. You get used to your shaft combinations and lofts and stuff that you get your little go-tos. You know, you recognise a player that works best with a certain combo, and and then obviously it's been kind of put to a bit of a abrupt halt for everyone, so a bit of a it's a strange one, but
well, it's definitely been the quietest period for me. I think usually my phone is just constant with like WhatsApps with the players, because that's how we tend to stay in touch with the players on a regular basis. So I'm usually like, I don't know, anywhere between 20 and 40 like WhatsApps a day, I guess, like interacting with players, as well as like European Tour. We look after sort of Challenge Tour, quite a few elite amateurs as well. So there's always like players on the case for new equipment or with questions or wanting to try something.
Mark, name drop. Who's the most famous golfer in your phone book at the moment?
Well, I've got Rory's number.
Damn.
So I wouldn't. I mean, I don't tend to like message him because I don't want to get blocked. But I think I've only ever had one like text back and forward with him, but I've got it if I need it. So I guess that's probably about as famous as it gets.
Just forward him forward him the link to this Zoom meeting. Just see what happens.
Yeah, maybe we'll get him on next week.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
That's quality. Just sort of going back to your background then. How, obviously, you sort of said you worked at TaylorMade for a little bit before you worked on tour. Obviously, that's how some people probably know that me and Mark used to work with each other back on the demo day sort of circuit. But before that, you were still a good player, but you were some player kind of growing up. You grew up kind of Hampshire as well. What's your kind of background in golf? What made you want to work in golf?
I took up golf fairly late, really. Didn't take it up till I was 15, so it was a bit late. I was into kind of other sports and things, and then I kind of really focused on golf. I got pretty good at, starting at 15, I got down to scratch at 19, and then I kind of really was then invested in the game, and I kind of saw it as a future from about that point on. A few more years later, a few wins and kind of steadily climbing up. I got into the England squad when I was 23, maybe 23 or 24, I think.
Pretty constant theme throughout our guests at the moment, Chris.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, just you probably know Ben Welsh. Do you remember? Did you play with Ben Welsh? Yeah, he works at.
He was actually maybe just before me. But I know the name, I know who he is. But he was probably just kind of coming out of the amateur ranks when I was just starting. So
so he was.
I know of him. Obviously, he was a really solid amateur.
Yeah.
So I had 3 years playing full time, in the England squads, and I played like 5 times in international matches, and won a couple of national tournaments. But then, just decided not to kind of turn pro, to be honest. So I got to about 26, 27, and a lot of the guys that I was competing with were 19, 20, and it was a case of keep going at it or look for something else to do. And I loved those years I had playing full time and playing for England. They were awesome years, but I don't regret the decisions I've made because I've come to a pretty good position for myself in the industry now.
For sure, yeah. Wasn't there in one of our many long van drives, we had some pretty long conversations, obviously, as well. But wasn't there a Q school that you could have gone to and didn't go to, or something along those lines? Was there one that you sort of thought you might be ready for, or you were playing really well, and then had an injury or something? Or
I had a really better than you. I had a really good season in 2007, and I won a couple of big tournaments that year. And I kind of think if I'd have gone to Q school that year, maybe with the confidence I had, and I was a couple of years younger, maybe that might have been the right time to go in hindsight. But sort of as I was kind of making that decision whether I go to Q school or not and kind of getting the funds together, that was when I got selected for England. Yeah. And then with the selection for England comes a bit of financial help. So I kind of decided to stay amateur, make the use of the coaching and the financial help and the kind of experience traveling around playing for England. So I took that decision and it was a great decision at the time. But in hindsight, that was probably the year I played my best golf. So, if I had kind of struck while the iron's hot, if you like, I probably would have gone that year in hindsight.
Nice. So obviously you decided not to turn pro, and obviously looking for jobs in the industry. Was TaylorMade the first one that you settled down with, and obviously doing demo days and stuff with Chris? Pretty much, yeah.
TaylorMade was supporting me when I was in the England team. So, they were just a local brand to me. I played a few of their clubs anyway. I knew a couple of people that were there. So I wrote to them, said I've been selected for England. And actually, I was like the first guy that they had in and kind of fully supported as part of their amateur program. Nice. And off the back of that, they extended the amateur program. And then, as it happens, I ended up like managing the amateur program a few years later. That's right. So it was quite funny being the first person that they kind of fully took on like that. So, I was in a position where they were saying to me, are you turning pro? Are you staying amateur? We're just trying to figure out our support structure for 2010, I think it was. And I said, to be honest, I'm really undecided. I'm not that keen to go and play the mini tours. But now I've played kind of 5 or 6 seasons as an amateur. And then it just so happened, someone there said, well, look, there's a summer job going doing the demo days. You can do that, still keep your golf up a little bit, play and practice. And just, it might be a foot in the door in the industry. So I kind of jumped at that chance, really. And pretty quickly after starting the demo days, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fitting aspect. I enjoyed the equipment kind of side of things. And within, I would say, 6 or 8 weeks, I pretty much changed my mind and knew that, I was going to do something else other than playing golf.
Nice.
Yeah, certainly. Like, it was probably a year or so after that then that I came on board with you, and you kind of hooked me up to give me the sort of nod to start as well. But yeah, certainly my impression of it always was kind of you were real, like, diving in head first, getting really stuck in with the fitting day side of things. It was all a bit manic as well, wasn't it? We had a massive area to cover, and it was quite it was quite a lot. I think
that's why. Yeah, I mean, that's why we brought you in, really. I mean, because previously to me starting the demo days, I think the demos were the guys were literally plodding up, plonking the bags down, and just kind of leaving the bags there for people to come and go as they please and pick out clubs. And there wasn't kind of too much like fitting aspect.
Yeah.
And I think I just, I really enjoyed it. So I kind of made it a bit more professional, a bit professional with the setup, a lot more interaction with the customer. And then that went really, really well. And we've had really good figures that year off the back of the demos. And that was when they said, well, we've got a big area and they're going so well, we need to take someone else on. So that was obviously when I came to you, Chris, and we kind of shared the area then, and we had a really good area.
Yeah.
And some good pros, some good demo days. And that was where we got to know each other pretty well.
And then we also had like, not to make this all sort of nostalgic sort of trip down memory lane already, but we had like R11 launching as well, didn't we? Like White Driver came out, all that rocket balls as well.
Yeah.
Kind of like just sort of skyrocketed. But the one thing, kind of on reflection, you probably, it'd be interesting to hear what you think, but on reflection of demo days, they're a great way for anybody who is sort of looking to get a foot in the door to learn about the industry, because you work with pros, you're working with so many different golfers every day. How do you think that you must have learned a lot about the golf swing from doing demo days and fitting days, and how's that helped you?
Yeah,
your fitting background.
Well, you see all the common flaws, and then that's where your experience as a fitter, I guess, you've seen it before. Like, okay, I've seen this flaw. I know kind of what club I need to give them, or I know what setup works for this guy because I've seen this mistake before. I've seen this ball flight before. So that's where you start to build your like pool of knowledge. And kind of like you said there, it's a good foot in the industry. You meet a lot of pros. You get to know equipment inside out. So really, it was the best platform for me to push on. So I done that for 2.5 years in the end.
Yeah.
Obviously, being a good player, I knew I wanted to work on the tour. So while I was there, I was kind of constantly on the office of the tour manager saying, look, I'm doing the demo days, but I want to be on tour. I want to be on tour. I'm really passionate about this now. So that was kind of, like I say, it gave me a great foot in the door and a great connection with the tour department at TaylorMade. And that's kind of where it all began. But yeah, I loved doing the demo days. Still remember your first demo day, actually, Chris. I think we were in Wales somewhere.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier.
Yeah.
What do you remember about it then?
I've heard this story from you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really remember too much. I just remember it being our first one, and I was trying to sort of, all the way up there, we were driving there, and I was trying to sort of explain the ropes to you. And then I was like, just watch me, just, shadow me this one. And if we get busy, then you can sort of maybe see to someone. And he's like, yeah. And literally, I was doing a fitting, and some lady came along and she was looking to try some clubs, and Chris went in the bay next door, and before I've even finished my fitting, he's come back and he's like, oh yeah, she's just bought the whole bag of clubs. I was like, whoa, this is before I've even finished my fitting, like this guy's going to be pretty good.
You're always always super slow though. You would have taken ages sort of talking about shafts or something. I don't know, but yeah, I remember that lady as well. Actually, I remember it a bit differently to you, but similar thing. I'd been given some training, but it was on like driver fitting mainly. So it was like just learning how the FCT sleeve like worked and and that kind of stuff. Really real like kind of entry level stuff. And I hadn't even done any training on iron fitting. Like I didn't really know about iron fitting, but yeah, that lady came along, and I remember sort of saying quite like loudly, "I think you should go flatter," like that, and like hoping you heard, just like, yeah.
I would have been in the zone with my fitting.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it did, it worked, and you took off from there really and done a great job. So.
Yeah, it was good.
Now this poor lady has got the same set of clubs that every ball flight's going 20 yards right. She's got them too flat.
Yeah, yeah, probably. She was 6'6", like. But yeah, no, I mean, with that in mind, then I had a question, and I think one of the kind of like parallels, I guess, you probably see, like, you're always going to be fitting characters, right? You're fitting a character when you're at a demo day, and you're fitting a character when you're in our studio, and you're fitting characters on tour as well. So like that adaptability is obviously really key to be able to like deal with different characters that you know that are coming through the door and that kind of thing. Do you have in mind sort of which one you would prefer to fit, or which one would be easier to fit, like a tour pro or a 10 handicapper?
Well, tour players are definitely easier to fit because they hit the ball consistently well all the time. So you can make a small adjustment to the club and you get instant feedback. So they're going to be a bit more receptive to having hit so many shots and hit so many clubs. They kind of have more of a picture of what they want. So, you know, I always say like asking questions is the best thing you can do because it draws out of the player what they're actually looking for. But quite often a tour player will tell you anyway. So he'll tell you what he's looking for, so you know, and you just use your expertise to kind of steer them in the right direction. But it's very much like a partner, like a two-way thing, or even with the caddy, sometimes with the coach. I mean, if you all get involved, then you sometimes come to a better conclusion. But the tour players, where they hit it consistently well, you know within 2 or 3 shots if this is going to work out or not. Whereas with the 10 handicapper, you might take 6 or 7 shots to get to that point.
Yeah.
So, and certainly working with someone like Rory, I mean, I've done a little bit of work with him in the past, and it's amazing how literally moving this kind of sliding weight like this much on the head of the driver, and you're seeing a different ball flight, or you're seeing it move kind of yard for yard almost, because he just hits it so consistently.
Yeah.
So the better player you are, the more that kind of comes into play, I think. And then, you know, vice versa. It takes you a little bit more time to get to that point with a handicap golfer. But that's where you guys, or you know, as I would have just used my experience with what we talked about earlier with, okay, I know how this guy swings it. I know what his faults are. You know, I'm going to push him down this path.
Yeah, I guess like the sort of, we would see like, if we're checking for like strike location, we're checking sort of which side of the club you might be hitting it out of more often than the other side. Whereas you're probably seeing like, you know, millimeter differences or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's obviously that's the kind of detail, I guess, that goes into it as well, isn't it? But yeah,
you're looking at much finer details as well. So that you're probably, you know, like with I'm not going to see like what you might see in the retail studio. I'm not going to see a 6 mile an hour ball speed change, or, you know, a 15-20 yard carry difference. You know, that doesn't happen. If I can show a tour player like 1.5 miles of speed and 3 yards of carry, then they'll play it because they're looking for just that 0.5% improvement on what they had. So
yeah, like you say, they're probably not coming to you with particularly ill-fitted or ill-suited equipment,
no,
are they?
Everyone's got good equipment out there. Yeah, everyone's got good equipment. It's just, you know, it's our job to try and find improvements for them. So certainly when the new product comes out, you know, it's always a case of like, right, okay, we've got to go and get this in their hands now because the product launch depends on it. So it has to perform as good or better than their previous product, or they won't play it because their careers depend on it.
And do you have many instances where you haven't gained a massive amount, or gained enough? Obviously, you must have had instances where you haven't gained enough for them to play it. But
sure, like, I mean, 3 woods is always a tough club to fit because people get quite comfy with a 3 wood. Everyone's quite particular about what they want to see out of a 3 wood, whether it's a backup club off the tee, whether it's a kind of spinny one, easy to launch off the fairway. That's probably the hardest club because a lot of players will get like comfortable with a 3 wood. Just Robert McIntyre springs to mind. He's still playing an aero burner 3 wood. Just loves it. Can do
a good 3 wood. I had one of those.
So I've come to him. Me and Sam, my colleague, have come to him with various 3 woods every single year. But it's like, I like it, but it's not better. I play it, but it's not better than what I have. So I'm going to carry on playing this one. So you always get some guys, we'll have that Middle East swing where we'll get focused time with the players. And we'll probably get, I don't know, 60 to 70% of the players switched into new product there. But then some of the other players, it might be, it's not quite there yet. And it can be a 3-month process to get them into the new product. Or sometimes, occasionally, we don't, because they just found a particular product that worked really, really well for them. And, and we're not showing them any improvements. But generally speaking, I would say we get about 80 to 90% of our kind of current product in play.
Yes, just depends on the player as well, doesn't it? Obviously, the player kind of is ultimately going to make the decision. If he's someone who is just reluctant to change just because he's kind of settled and he's played a certain setup in his bag for less than a year probably, and he's kind of he's happy where he is.
Like you say, their careers depend on it at the end of the day, so they're not going to play anything. If you show them a yard and a half, then they'll play it. If you're a yard and a half behind, they won't. It's that kind of cutthroat, really. They're like, you need to show me with the TrackMan that this is better than what I'm already playing.
Yeah.
And then
on that note, Mark, sorry.
Yeah.
Go on. Just on that note, me and Chris spoke briefly with Ben the other day, talking about how they kind of fit their players, and they use a lot of statistics back in the background. Titleist, they obviously gather quite a lot of statistics with their players about fairways missed, greens missed, and they then move that into their tour fitters to try and work around that. Is that something that TaylorMade do, or is that kind of more player specific and what they do?
I know with our icon players, certainly, and we've got a stats guy in America, and he's an absolute genius. So he knows everything about not just our players, but every other player as well. And also like how the course is, what type of player suits what type of course. And he'll sort of share that information as much or as little as the players want to know it. But certainly when, our guys in the States on the PGA Tour are going to fittings with those guys, they'll be armed with all that information. From our side, it's more a case of, I look at the European Tour, just the basic stats a lot of the time. So let's say I've fitted a guy into a new driver in the Middle East in January. I'll be keeping an eye on his kind of driving stats, throughout the next 2 or 3 months, just to kind of compare them to last year. Because I don't want him to be down 5 or 6% on fairways, because then that's something I'm going to need to address. Usually they'll come to me with that kind of thing. They'll say, it's not quite where I was last year. I need a little bit of work. And sometimes, like I say, it can be a bit of a process over 2-3 tournaments or longer. But yeah, I'll use more like the basic stats. But I know PGA Tour, we've got a guy specifically for that with our icon players who will work on their stats.
So the one that I've heard of, even goes into 80% of guys in this tournament last year hit 3 woods or less than driver off the tees. 60% of the bogeys came from missing the fairway right, that kind of stuff. 80% of people missed it short, all that kind of stuff. I guess caddies must have access to it and stuff as well. And
Yeah, and there's so much data out there, especially on the PGA Tour, because they've obviously got like ShotLink and everything like that. So there's so much data available. But yeah, the way that our guy breaks it down in America, it's incredible. You can tell where people make the most birdies from, what they hit off the tee, previous winners of how they've played the course, aggressive, or what holes they've been aggressive on, what holes they've been conservative on. It's really incredible how deep they can go. But then some players like DJ, I mean, he doesn't really kind of respond well to that.
Yeah.
But then I know Rory and his caddy especially, they love that kind of stuff, or certainly his caddy. His caddy will absorb as much of that info as he can.
So on that point, actually, kind of working around the player idea again, in terms of your fitting, who is, you'd say, on the higher side of the most in depth with their fitting, and who is on the lower side more works around their feels and what all that kind of stuff? Is there anyone out there that is noticeably more in depth with their technology?
Really high maintenance.
Yeah. There's a few. I mean, like we said earlier, there's all different.
Any name drops?
Well, if I'm talking about like the high profile players that everyone would have heard of, then Justin Rose was definitely the most in-depth, detailed kind of player I don't think there'll be a more detailed guy out there. He was always quite heavily involved in our initial testing because he gave such great feedback, very, very precise feedback. He was, always wanted to be a part of like the process of the, his bag setup, and some very, very in-depth sessions we would do with him, just, on every single club in his bag. So he was definitely the, high maintenance, but in a good way, because he challenged like us to get better, because, of the demands he put on us to find a little bit more, and a bit more. So he was definitely the most in-depth player I'd work with, but I would say in a good way.
Was there any kind of like breakthrough moments that you specifically remember? So like, a new driver or anything that you remember him going, wow, this is amazing?
I know he was a huge. I remember working with him with the high toe wedge in Dubai, and that he kind of instantly responded really, really well to that. He loved like the wide sole on it, the full length grooves. I remember that being like this is incredible. And I remember him saying something. We were at the Jumeirah Club, and we were just pitching onto the putting green there, and he was like, sort of like, I've really got a complete 14 club bag now with TaylorMade that I can be 100% happy with. And obviously, about 2 years later he went and left, but I remember him saying like, there's TaylorMade have always been strong at this and this, but maybe not so strong here, or they've always had a good ball and good metal woods, but I've struggled to find a putter, or struggled to find a wedge or something. But he says, for the first time, I remember him saying that, for the first time I feel like now I've got full 14 clubs and ball that I'm fully happy with. And that was like the high toe wedge was sort of like the turning point there for him. He kind of fell in love with that pretty quickly.
Yeah. Are you ever just sort of on an opposite note to that? Are you ever amazed at how little a player knows about either their delivery or their game, or
I think at
just
time
equipment for sure, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think in the time, because I first, like I say, I've only been full-time on tour for like 3 years now, but I was doing quite a bit on tour back in 2013-14, and it's definitely changed even in that time, because every player out there owns a TrackMan now. So every player seems to know their own data. They know their, how they swing it best, what their attack angle is, what their club path is. It seems to be pretty much the norm now. And as players search for a little bit more and a little bit more, a lot of them know, the swing weights of their clubs, the lofts and lies of their clubs. They've got it recorded on their phone. Right, can we check the lofts and lies? This is what they should be. So as players are kind of pushing for more and more detail, but I remember like I don't know, to be honest, I've never really worked with DJ, but just a story on the opposite side to Rose, I guess. I was with him. He asked me to do some, like, check the lies and regrip his wedges at the Open a couple of years ago. And I was looking at the spec of his shafts, and I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. He's using quite light shafts for a wedge. And I remember bringing them out to him, and I was like, right, yeah, all done for you, DJ. I was like, oh, out of interest, how did you come to play that shaft? Because it's quite a lot lighter than your iron shafts, and that's quite unusual. And he just went like, I don't know. I just picked it up one day, and I just hit a bunch of shots with it, and it seemed to work. So I just stuck with it.
Yeah.
So I was expecting some sort of like in-depth answer about the testing process he went through, and he was yeah, up out of the bag, hit it, felt good.
That's like your sort of just your 10 handicapper at the golf club, isn't it? Just like waggling shafts around in the pro shop, like, oh yeah, that feels all right. Like, or found it in the back of the garage or whatever. And
yeah, I walked a couple of holes with him at the Open last year at Portrush, and I remember the 16th hole there was like this quite well-known par 3. I don't know if anyone remembers it.
Got it on the simulator.
200
the long one.
Par 3.
Big shelf on the right.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a brutal par 3, really intimidating tee shot.
Yeah.
And it was the practice round, so obviously, he just walks up on the tee, throws his ball down, picks out a club, swipes it to like 12 feet, walks up with his putter, just like casually knocks it in. No practice strokes, no practice swings, just made it easiest 2 you've ever seen. And we were walking off the green, and I said to his brother, AJ, who's obviously his caddy, I was like, what did he hit there? And he went, yeah, I don't even know. He just picked out a club and just hit it. And like all the other caddies there are like writing down the wind, the yardage, what club they hit, how far it went. And those two are just like, oh yeah, I don't like. It's all kind of feel, really. Yeah. So yeah,
and that goes back to those points we were making earlier about adapting yourself to the player, especially on tour, because you have to then dial yourself into what DJ feels, what he wants, but then 2 minutes later you've got to dial yourself into what Justin Rose wants. So it must be a pretty cool job, really.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I think that's where it helps, really, that there's a few of us out there, because you've all got slightly different personalities, and I think the players tend to kind of migrate towards, one particular rep who they just respond to a little bit better. So, one of us will be, much more in depth on the numbers. One of us would be a bit more casual and have a bit more of a laugh, but, know how to get the job done. And then, someone else might be slightly different, fit in a slightly different way. So, yeah, we've all got sort of our few players, I guess, that we tend to kind of stick with most of the time, although any player could work with any one of us with kind of confidence. Definitely you'll see certain players migrate to certain tour reps just because they kind of
the sort of the split of responsibilities, like you all fit and you all build, or does some of you build and some of you fit, or what's the would you build a driver that you've just fitted for somebody, or would you kind of pass a spec on?
I mean, I'm a competent club builder. I could build a driver. I could build a set of irons, wedges, like pretty competently. But yeah, we do keep it separate. Like there'll be the tour reps and the tour technicians. So quite often, if it is like a driver, I'll just jump on and build it myself. Yeah. There's other work going on the tour truck. Just to speed things along. If it was like a more in-depth build, like, a grind on some wedges or a set of irons, then I would leave that for the technicians, purely because they've done it a lot more than me. So they're going to build it in probably a third of the time that it would take me to build a set of irons. But so I the reps specialize more in the fitting and the player interaction, and the technicians specialize more in the details of the club specs. So if I give them, we've got our sheets that we would write out when we're writing an order. So we want this driver at this lie angle, this face angle, this loft. They're all kind of experts in building exactly what we ask for. Nice.
Amazing. That's great. You got any extra little bits to add on there, Jacob, or?
No, not really. I was just going to ask one question. Obviously, you do a lot of traveling around the European tour. What's your favorite place to go when you're traveling? Is it the Middle East? Is it, mainland Europe? What's your best kind of time of the year for you?
Good question. I mean, it is a good question. Like I've got to say, I love traveling anyway. So obviously, I mean, I don't think you can do this job unless you love traveling, because I'm away, like 30. I'm doing 34 tournaments, or say I was doing 34 tournaments this year. Now, 3 or 4 of them will be amateur events, maybe 1 or 2 challenge tour. So pushing about 29, 30 European tour events. So it's a lot of travel. So unless you like the travel side, you're not going to last very long in this job. Some people come in and then they quickly realize that they don't like it, and they end up obviously, going and looking for something else, because it's not for everyone. Obviously it sounds quite glamorous because you're in hotels and on planes and working with like the players every week, but it's not always like that, because you are, 3 a.m. alarms every Monday to go and catch an early flight. You're obviously away from your family a lot of the time. I think I'm about 120 days a year away from home, so basically a third of the year. But yeah, going back to your question, I love traveling anyway, but Dubai is definitely a place that I really enjoy spending time in. Just the golf courses are just amazing. They're immaculate. We get to have some really good quality time with the players away from tournaments, because we'll go out there like a week before the kind of Abu Dhabi HSBC tournament starts. And every day we'll just be getting some good quality time with the players. And then usually we'll go out and play like 9 holes with them or something after fitting them. So it's just a really cool like time of the year, that just playing golf in Dubai. We work out at the Els Club a lot, which I absolutely love. It's just my favorite place anywhere. Golf wise, it's my favorite place in the world. And they look after us really, really well there. So I'd have to say Dubai. I wouldn't like to live there, but I just enjoy spending that time out there so much.
Nice.
Plus the
cool.
like Chris said.
Good stuff. Awesome. We better, with time flies, eh? But really appreciate your time tonight, Mark.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks for jumping on and being with us. And hopefully we get back out on the golf course soon. Hopefully by the time this comes out, we might be back out on the golf course with any luck. So hopefully have a great year and keep those sim drivers flying out the truck. And
you boys too, eh? You boys too.
catch up with you soon, man.
All right, boys. Cheers.
Thanks for that, Mark.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.